So we're going to start.
Okay.
So as usual, for the record, you just state your full name for me and your position with UN Women.
Okay, thank you. My name is Isiuwa Iyahen. I work with the UN Women Multi-Country Office for the Caribbean, which is based in Barbados, but covers the English and Dutch-speaking Caribbean. And I manage the economic empowerment and statistics portfolios. Should I repeat that?
No, this is good.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So let's start. You mentioned a lot of things there based on what you do, and certainly it seems that you use a lot of data and statistics and so to inform the work that you do. As you know, Grenada is currently in its census phase, and we have a lot going on right now. And we just want our viewers to understand the importance of a census and why we should have one. And Grenada, like many other countries in the region, would have it every 10 years, you know. So just explain to our viewers for me, based from where you sit, from your desk and the work that you do, how important is census data in your line of work?
Well, I'll start by saying that the census data is unmatched. It's unmatched in terms of the depth of information it provides on the country and its people. I have used census data to determine how many women and men are in a country. For example, their different living conditions, their different access to resources and services such as housing, health, and education. And so these are examples of how critical and invaluable the census data is.
Definitely. And people are sometimes apprehensive based on the questions that are asked in a census. You know, for Grenada especially, you have people saying, well, why you want to know how much gadgets I have in my home? Why you want to know if I'm fertile? You know, why are you asking me about my mother's health? You know, and that kind of a thing. Could you just explain to our viewers why these questions are important in a census?
Well, you know, these questions can be perceived as sensitive. For example, the one you raised, like fertility, but they're very important. And in Grenada and other small island developing states, it's critical to understand that the population of the country is changing and the standard of living of the country is changing. And so it's important to know how many women and men are in a country, the rate at which the population is increasing or decreasing, the number of elderly people, for example, in the country, people living with disabilities, people living in poverty. And if this information is not collected, it can be quite challenging to develop and deliver programs and services to the population. So while I understand that the population might perceive these questions as sensitive, they are really important to determining the living standards of the people, the living conditions of the people. And so I would encourage Grenadians to participate as much as possible in the census.
As an official of UN Women, why do we need questions on fertility?
Well, I think, again, back to my point about, you know, the changing population dynamics of a country. Let's say you want to know how many elderly people are living in a country, the numbers of young people living in a country. You determine that by assessing how fast or how slow the population is increasing or decreasing. And so that's why questions on fertility are so important, because you want to know, you know, what the birth rate is, what the mortality or death rate is, and then you're able to kind of track and see, you know, the changing population dynamics in that regard. So I think this is a concern not only for UN Women, it's even more important for the government of Grenada, for the people of Grenada, to know what is happening with their population. And so those questions on fertility are the only way, or at least the main way, in which the government will be able to have this data to determine, you know, the changes in the demographics of the country.
Your organization is an international one, and you work with several countries. Just tell us a bit about how a census data would have helped in regional development or so.
Well, the census, as you noted just now, is important for local development and regional development. Grenada is a CARICOM member state. It's a member state of the OECS. It's a member state of the United Nations and many other, you know, international bodies and fora. And the census data has been used to inform strategies on how to reduce poverty, for example, health policy, policies on housing, policies on the delivery and provision of services, particularly to those who are the most vulnerable, for example, people living in poverty, the elderly, persons with disabilities, and so on. So these policies and programs and services are necessary in order to ensure that no one is left behind, right? And how do we track who is being left behind, who is marginalized? It's through data. It's through collecting data from the census, for example. So the census data can be very important, and in fact, it's critical to monitor and assess progress on development at both local and regional levels. And this information can help Grenada track and monitor how it's doing nationally, locally, at community levels, but then also, you know, as a member state of the OECS, right? How is Grenada performing in relation to other countries in the OECS, in the region, and internationally? So I would say that for this reason, Grenadians should also participate. Of course, the critical and most important interest tends to be what is happening in your own community and in your own country. But then, as I said, you can now see the linkages to the region and beyond.
Encourage persons first before you leave, you know, to really and truly participate honestly, because we do want honest data to be collected. So, you know, from your seat, from your office, just send a word of encouragement to all our viewers.
Well, I want to really encourage Grenadians again that, you know, this is a very important exercise, particularly in countries that are unable to carry out many surveys. And Grenada is one of those countries. Grenada, you know, is not the United States or Canada or the UK, with countries with vast resources that have, you know, data collection exercises going on all the time. So Grenada and other small island developing states that are very similar perhaps usually have one opportunity to collect information like this, and that information is the census. Or sorry, that opportunity is the census. So I encourage Grenadians to take part in the census so that this vital information is collected, and that this information is then made available to our policymakers for development of policies and programs to improve the standard of living of Grenadians, and so that no Grenadian is left behind and no one is left behind.
Thank you so very much for your time. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So you're going to send this for me, right?
Yes, I will. And I hope, I usually get a bit nervous. I hope I gave you all the information.
Yes, you did. Thank you so very much.
No problem.
And thank you for your patience. Thank you.
No problem. All right.
Okay,
Take
bye.
care. Bye. All right.